Awesome. Like the speakers? Like the lunch? Like me? Oh, thank you. I just need reinforcement every once in a while. All right, we're going to get started. A couple of announcements. There is this gentleman right here, Ian. Ian, raise your hand. He is our wonderful help with AV and internet here. I know people are having issues with internet, and I think with the room full of IT people, we have all diagnosed the issue. The DHCP scope has been pretty much exhausted. So we'll work with them. We'll try to get what we need to get done. We'll have breaks starting at the first break. We will be selling T-shirts. What do you guys think of the attendee T-shirts? Dormant cyber pathogens. So we have 2 other T-shirts we will be selling. I find your lack of segmentation disturbing. And Mr. R2D2, I don't always attack or hack the Death Star, but when I do, I exfil all the data. So those will be available starting the first break. We will take cash, credit card. I need to take this out because I'm choking myself. Cash, credit card, Bitcoin. We won't take Bitcoin. It'll be $15 for 1 T-shirt, $25 for 2. We'll be doing it at the registration table. Please be very mindful and patient. It will be first come, first serve. Again, as a reminder, if you look in the program, I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired, so sorry. If you look at the program, next year we will be having ours on Thursday and Friday. Now, I did tell you we sold out this year. All right? We will be starting to sell tickets January 1 of 2017. We will have a cutoff date. We're not going to be selling until the last week. One of the things that we try to do is we try to make sure you guys have a good lunch. We want to make sure we have really good breaks. Ameristar has been amazing with this because they want their final count 3 weeks before the event. So I can't tell you, this will sell out. You do get early bird specials if you get your ticket early, but we sold out this year. We will sell out next year. I appreciate everybody that did come at the last minute, but I'm just giving you a heads up. All right? So everybody's good with that. Okay, I got some giveaways real quick before we go and have some. Sounds like a morning TV show. Fun with Dan.
There we go. Excellent.
All right, first, hacker stickers. I really want to know who comes up with their stuff. I have I almost spoke into this. I have a Bluetooth toothbrush.
What?
Hey, Dan,
this is why we drink.
Yeah, look at this. Here are the features. Tracking, notifications, gaming, rewards. We may actually start brushing our teeth again. Okay. And refills.
For any wannabe NSA people in the room, it means you can take that toothbrush, put it on somebody's car, and have them followed.
All right, random.
Tracking on a toothbrush.
Let's see.
Okay.
This one's a real awkward one because if I call it out, I'm not saying that you need a new toothbrush. Is Dan Davis here? Dan, you are the only person in this con that will have a Bluetooth toothbrush. Email me. Let me know how that works. All right. Again, Hacker Stickers is one of our sponsors. I goofed up. I forgot to put their stickers out. They do have stickers. Just go to our booth, and they are right there. I got 3 $20 gift certificates to Hacker Stickers. Why is it all showing Ben 10 now? Not that he just planned this.
You were saying something about segmentation?
Segmentation, yeah. How about Greg Bone? Is Greg here? Jason Street? Nope, definitely not. Jeff Roberts?
Holy crap.
Jeff, come on up. How about, let's go to the K's. Kevin Cook. Come on up. And finally, Richard Anderson. There you go, sir. There you go. I heard a Richard's coming up. Who's been doing the Lockpick Village? Awesome. Awesome. Keep doing that. That's Adrian's Lockpick Village. If you haven't been doing it, do it. You will know how to break into things by the end of the day. Is there a Scott Skaggs here? You, thanks to Hacker Stickers, you now have a nice professional lockpicking set. Please make sure not to take that on to a carry-on the plane. They get a little nervous about that. And then finally, from No Starch Press, is there an Adam Cole here? You are the recipient of Practical Malware Analysis. Congratulations. We have a lot more gifts to give away. Make sure to get to these sponsors this morning. We will be, to make it a lot easier, we will be announcing these before lunch. They're winners. So make sure to go talk to them. If you're doing the CTF, you need to get passwords from them. And if you haven't been to any of them, please at least just stop by, take some of their literature, thank them for coming, and please consider them when you are looking for solutions. All right. This one is going to be fun. So I get a look at all of the talks, and I knew about Dan. Just everybody knows about Dan. Good and bad stuff. But he's from the internet. He's internet famous. I'm trying to find his official biography.
Has every word been replaced with the word cyber?
It has. It has.
It's happened before.
It has. That has happened before. When we were looking at all of the talks, and, you know, I've been known to not have the best love for OSX, and, you know, the whole idea that everything is extremely secure. The second Dan's came over, less than 30 seconds later, I'm like, he has to be into this. This is an extremely important talk, especially if you're dealing with a mixed environment. Everybody's worried about their Windows boxes. Today, Dan's going to talk a lot about attacking OSX. Now, Dan's official biography. I was approached by Fusion to be part of their Real Future documentary, specifically, and I quote, to see how badly I could fuck his life up while having to control his laptop. They wanted me to approach this scenario from a typical attacker's point of view. And so he came in, he took all of the gentlemen's Google phones, he took his Apple, and from there, living off the land, he was able to come in and take over OSX. So without further ado, Mr. Dan Tentler.
Thank you very much. Man, no worries. Holy crap. It is 9 in the morning. What are you all doing here? Holy crap. Frankly, I'm kind of nervous. You guys are all following me. Pen testers in the room? Attack folks? 1. No. Okay, cool. Anybody found themselves on a mixed network, you know, Windows, Mac, or found like a handful of Macs? Gigantic pain in the ass, right? No SMB, no SSH, no Telnet, no Mimikatz, no pivoting, no migrating, no, nothing, right? Like, what do you do? I built this talk based off of, like Dave was saying, Fusion came to me and said, we literally want you to hack a guy. And I said, go on. They said they were doing an expose basically on DEF CON, and they wanted me to sort of go to town on one of their reporters. So I did. And the documentary came out in February, and it was fine and dandy and wonderful and neat, except they left out all the technical stuff that I did, and they left out the fact that I wrote a command and control on this guy's laptop while I was owning him. And I was like, well, that's probably an important thing to mention, so I figured I'd make a talk about it. So who am I? I run a little security company called Phobos Group. I'm really shouty on the internet. I'm Vis on Twitter. I get on the news sometimes. I laugh about compliance quite a lot. And basically this. This is me from CCDC last year. I actually brought that, and it was like 100 degrees in that thing, so I had to take it off. But yeah, fun times. I built a thing, I'm calling it Duct Tape C2 because it's horribly written. It's a bunch of shell scripts, but it functions. It's basically a tool called Platypus, which I'll explain, Bash, Python interpreter, a really crappy web gallery, and basically if NSA and hacking team had a test tube baby. It's more of a surveillance backend than it is sort of a post-exploit toolkit, right? So you have, like, I guess poopy shell or puppy shell. I think the developer wants it called poopy shell just so people say poopy on stage. And then you have like Python interpreter, and as of like 3 weeks ago, the people that make Empire, but spelled differently, like EMPYRE, which is like a Python-based toolkit, especially designed to attack Macs. That didn't exist. So this whole thing happened last summer, right before DEF CON, and it's taken me since then to sort of wire all this stuff together. But you'd say like this, what are you doing? Why are you redoing work? All these other toolkits already exist. Well, kinda, sorta. Metasploit has stuff, but not a lot of stuff. Metasploit is vastly more attuned to Windows environments. It's designed to attack, Active Directory effectively. Core Impact, just no. Immunity, I'm not even sure. I've never touched it. Empire and Poopy didn't even exist. Poopy came out like September of last year, which is several months after DEF CON. And they also do different things. Mine's more, again, surveillance-based, and these are post-exploit toolkits for things like capturing passwords and keystrokes and that sort of thing. So Fusion asked me to hack a guy. And their exact words were, I want to see how bad you can fuck up my life. Oh, okay. So, I go to town on the poor guy, right? So, alright, this is Kevin Roos. He's one of the producers at Fusion. I spent some time, doing the OSINT dance. Found him on Squarespace. He's your typical Mac user. He's got Mac, an iPhone. He uses Google Apps with 2FA. And he flat out asked me to hack him. He's a journalist. He lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, at least for now. And he heard about me from a mutual colleague, or his colleague, a mutual friend, Kashmir. So I do your typical thing, right? You look at whois, you look at the, maps, you look at mail headers, you look at stuff like that. And it's coming up kind of scant. There's not a lot of stuff going on. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I sort of should have expected this, right? So your typical OSX user, right? And when you think about OSX, there's not a lot of options unless you have ODay. And I'm not an exploit dev, and I don't spend any time in a debugger, so I got no ODay. So, to take sort of stock of, spending a day or two on doing recon on this guy, he's a journalist, he's got a blog on Squarespace, that's really the only interesting thing I find. Typical OSX stack. He knows I'm coming. So for any Better Call Saul fans, Better Call Saul fans in the room, I'm like, well, fuckery must be conducted. I discovered an application called Platypus. Platypus is really, really neat. So for the OSX folks in the room, you might know or you might not know that .app files aren't actually files; they're directories. You can right-click on them and say Show Package Contents, and it will show you a directory structure of a bunch of things. What this application does is it takes any script or binary that you feel like turning into an app and wrapping it in that directory structure and giving it an icon and making it look all fancy pants like a real legit OSX app, which is really cool because you can make Python interpreter look like an installer. So I did. You can make it do whatever. Like, you can load this thing up with like 25 different payloads, and when they open that thing, you get like 25 different shells going out to 25 different C2s, and you're like, it's a cornucopia of own. So the first thing I did was I decided, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and do some kind of fish, and it's gonna involve Squarespace, but I wasn't really sure what, so I started playing with this thing. I went and I registered a bogus domain. It's like a typo of Squarespace, right? So look, I paid $2 for SSL. And this was before Let's Encrypt, right? So Let's Encrypt was like in private beta back in August of last year. I don't even think I knew about it. So Let's Encrypt didn't really come out until like end of Q4 last year, I want to say. But now, like, it's free. Let's Encrypt and wrap everything in SSL. So here's the actual fish. I put this text both in the email and I put it on a page. It basically says, at Squarespace, we're committed to security. The last several months have brought wave after wave of SSL weaknesses. And this was right after, what was the last one? I think it was right after Heartbleed. The last several months have brought wave after wave of SSL weaknesses, security incidents, and major news coverage. To ensure the security of our customer base, we've wrapped our feature-rich editor in two-way SSL client-side certificates, making the attack surface substantially harder to get a foothold into. Please download the certificate installer, which will install our security certificates into your system. Don't worry, the installer is very simple and straightforward. Simply run it, and away you go. And he did. So, it was kind of like this, right? Like everybody that does attack in the room, that very first shell you get, it's like, I'll play that again, because you gotta time it right. You're like, send this video, yes! You get that first shell comes back, you're like, yeah! And then you realize you're on a Mac. And you're like, are you kidding me? Seriously? And then you just spend the next 15 minutes kicking your chair around the room. So no webcam, no keylog, no interpreter, no pivoting, no automated persistence, no mimikatz, like none of the awesome tools that you use all the time on Windows stacks. And you're like, God damn it. Right? You're like, so fine. I gotta do everything by hand, fine. I'll do everything by hand. So literally I'm on this guy's machine and I decide I gotta do everything by hand. So here we go. I'm opening VI in somebody else's machine. This is literally an instance of my other computer is your computer. Like straight up. I built this thing on this poor guy's Mac in a non-interactive Python shell. So first thing I did was I had to go discover how do I do like stupid persistence. And what I mean by stupid persistence is like no obfuscation. I'm not using binaries. These are all like straight up plain English shell scripts on somebody else's box. Like if he found these things and just opened them in VI, he'd be like, wow, this is very obviously horribly done. What? This guy should shoot himself. But this was, there is no cron on OSX. Well, that's kind of a lie. There is cron, but it's a giant pain in the ass to turn on, and it requires root, and it'll give the user notifications, and there's stuff that, it's not, what's the term they use in Empire? It's not OPSEC safe. People will notice. So, you can use what's called launch control. Launch control is kind of like, if you could combine, like, the Windows registry and a butler. Like, you can give launch control stuff to do. You can, like, lob XML into launch control, and launch control will do things. And in this case, this is a snippet of an XML file that is effectively a cron job. I'm telling launch control, see this shell script, run this shell script every 300 seconds, and I lob that in. And now I basically have a cron job, which was really, really rad. And I'm like, okay, cool, now I have persistence. Except when you have like 600 shells on a Mac, Python starts to break with these weird nondescript errors that you can't fix. And, you know, Googling the error shows nothing because it's super, super, super generic. So what do you do when you have 600 shells on this guy's Mac? Like, again, not OPSEC safe. If the dude's Mac is rebooting or breaking because, like, stuff isn't working, he kind of knows you're there. So I had to write this whole, I had to do it by hand, actually. It's just to start going and just killing interpreter shells over and over, just every day, like 2 or 3 times a day, go in and say, kill 200 shells, kill 200 shells. And I'm like, all right, screw it. There's one feature request I wish that these things have, and really I should probably be putting this on GitHub instead of shouting about it on stage. Is like, wouldn't it be nice to have like a counter in any of these exploit frameworks where you say like, I only want like 5 shells per box. If a 6th shell phones in, you know, sysinfo runs and Metasploit says, oh, we already have 5 shells on this, go away. And the 6th shell goes, okay, I'm out. And you can avoid this. So I was like, okay, I need to split tasks up. I can't use one shell script for everything. Because basically this one shell script was doing surveillance on this guy as well, which I'll explain in a moment. But I had one loop that I said, okay, one loop will run every hour, and another loop will run every 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, make sure the one that just gives me a shell is every hour, so I don't have to go in and clean like 5 or 10 a day. So, as it turns out, and this was very neat to find out, you can get GPS coordinates out of a Mac. Which is really weird, because Macs don't have GPS. Anybody remember the very first iPhone where Apple was like, we have GPS. I know we're like 10 years behind Android, but we have GPS now. And there was no GPS, right? And you could do this on like the first generation iPod Touch. Anybody remember that? Yeah? So like, you guys know how they do that. It's Wi-Fi triangulation. I'll explain that in a bit, but it's really neat. So it turns out like that API exists in OSX too, and you can abuse it, and it's really fun. I have a demo. So, yeah, right? So, OSA scripting is something I need to call out. Fuzzy Nop is a wizard. I'll give him a shout out in a bit. And webcam snapshot. So it turns out like, because I didn't have a lot of post-exploit modules that were conveniently written by somebody else that were tested and functional, so I could just be like lazy guy, like Hacksaw Man. I had to do it all by hand, and I figured, while I sort out how to deal with all of this stuff, I'll just start taking pictures of this guy and taking desktop screenshots in the interim until I can get my legit stuff working. And what I ended up with was an ocean of data. Like, holy crap. I didn't know what to do with this many pictures. So I had basically, like, you see these pictures, they come in pairs, right? So there's a desktop screenshot and a webcam screenshot and a desktop screenshot. They happen at the same time. And if you look at them at the same time, you get some really interesting OSINT, right? So you can see, like, these top ones, and there's terrible things. But, like, I'm not sure if you can tell. You probably can't tell from these. Like that top right photo, like dude's in the airport. Interesting. He's in the airport and I see his desktop. So I see what, you learn a lot by looking at their surroundings, looking at what they're doing, things like that. As a really funny piece of note, my exfil of these images, which weren't compressed in any way, which are just being uploaded with a crappy curl script, were stealing all of his bandwidth on the plane. So I have screenshots of him on his flight from Ohio to DEF CON, on his Virgin America flight, where he's frustrated, visibly frustrated, looking at his desktop, which says, like, you have no internet. He's trying to load Facebook, and these are pictures I'm seeing because all my uploads are hogging his bandwidth. And I'm like, this is too good. But yeah, so at this point, like, this gallery, some crap, I'm not a front-end dev. Like, before I went sysadmin, I was like systems architect, like Linux dude, networking guy, like sysadmin mode. So, I don't have a very strong development background. Like, you put a gun in my mouth, I might be able to knock out some Python, but so this gallery, like, you put 500 pictures in it, it's fine. You put 1,000 pictures in it, it takes 3 minutes to load. So it's terrible and it needs help, and yeah, I'll get to that. But, yeah, you have to figure out a way. Like, now you have this ocean of JPEGs. Like, what do you do with it? So after I sorted that out, Fuzzy Nop, who's another red team guy who's very, very skilled, came up with this way to exploit OSA script. Now, OSA script is like, man, it's like the would you kindly for OSX. Would you kindly ask the user for his 1Password password? And OSX goes, okay. So you can say, like, 1Password, open a dialog box that says, give me your password. And it does that. And the user types in stuff, and it shows up in the command line. So you can, like, second layer, third layer, fourth layer phish people. So, like, phishing is bad, right? You can phish people, you send them a macro.xml document or a macro whatever, or you send them binaries or a link or whatever, and you get shell on their machine. Phishing isn't over. You can keep phishing, and it gets real messy for them. For you, it's great. For them, it's bad. But yeah, so, like, you can get any app to do anything, and you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with OSA script. You can, like, change the desktop background, you can rotate the display, you can change the OS language to, like, Chinese simplified. Oh man, you can make people kick their chair around in the room for half an hour. So at this point, I was like, okay, I think I have a good idea of, like, I'm elbow deep in this guy's Mac. Let's start playtime. Let's actually start exfiltrating data and seeing what we can do at the, like, espionage/intelligence level to mess with the guy. So first things first, before I realized you could do GPS, there's an airport binary on the OSX system that exists. It's like 15 directories deep, but if you Google for it, it'll give you the path. You type airport-s, and it will give you a list of all the SSIDs that your Mac can see. And I mentioned earlier that iPhones and the first generation iPod Touch that didn't physically have a GPS chip in it had the capability to somehow tell you where you were within, like, a 10-meter radius. The way that they did it was they did it sort of like Google does it, right? There's this company called Skyhook that they buy licenses from. And Skyhook just straight up did war driving. They just sent vans all around the country with little antennas and just war drove the whole country. And they still do. And what this allows you to do is take these MAC addresses and go basically search for them on the internet. There's a civilian version of Skyhook that you don't have to pay for called Wiggle, W-I-G-L-E. And you can go to Wiggle and you can search for a MAC address, and it will tell you where the MAC address is physically in the country. So if you have shell on somebody's machine and you know which wireless SSIDs you can see, you can just straight up search for them in this search engine, and they will say, hey, he's at the corner of Broadway and West 28th Street in the Ace Hotel. Have fun. Go get him. Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, that's pretty neat. So, you can do it, it's not obviously not the most accurate because these are trucks on the street driving around, so they can only give you like some level of, they can tell you to within a couple of 100 feet where the person is. And it's nice, and you can do that. There's better ways to do it I'll get into. But yeah, so I thought this is handy if you can get your hands on it. So, did the simple thing. Started grabbing stuff from his home directory, found his Dropbox directory. Dropbox was paired with 1Password, and I said, ooh, I'm gonna remember that. Added myself a user, created a reverse SSH port forward for myself, and then moved my persistence to that from Python interpreter, which, oh man, it's a lot nicer to have an interactive shell. That was kind of a pain to add a user. I should have probably included a slide with all the commands for that, but poke me afterwards and I'll see if I can find it. As a note, the keychains that OSX uses to store all your saved passwords, all your ESSIDs, all the stuff that goes into your browser are encrypted with the user's logon password. So if you do this and you get their password, you can have this, which is everything. So I encourage you to do that. Also, feel free to take and reuse that fuckery GIF as much as you guys want. Go to bloodbath mode. Another friend of mine, C. Nelson, who is a developer, mentioned that the core location service API exists on OSX as well as iPhone, and I said, no way. And he said, yeah, here's a demo, what is that, piece of source code. It's like 80 lines of C. Okay. So I compiled it, and I have a demo for you guys. This is pretty neat. So check this out. This is dumb. Here's my crappy thing. Can you see stuff? No, is it too small? Can you guys see that? Is that okay? Is that good? Keep going. Is that okay? Can't even see the curve. Bigger. You guys need it so big. Is that good? Okay. So, bam. Look at that, GPS coordinates. It's straight up, just GPS coordinates on a Mac. Like, this is my laptop. So now I have to try to find my cursor. Because now I need to copy paste. Now I'm just being silly. Where is my mouse? Oh my god, I can't see it. Alright, let's do this. I'll cheat. Oh my god. Oh, there you go. I need to borrow that for a second. Hey, come back. This is terrible. Let's do this. Sorry, it's just really hard to see from here, so I'm going to cheat for a sec. Right, so grab those GPS coordinates. And then I have Google Maps. Right, and then I just paste the GPS coordinates in, and this is where my Mac thinks we are. No, there's no GPS in this device. So it just, and you can add this into your 2-minute, plist file that acts like cron. And in addition to desktop screenshots, webcam screenshots, you can also have a GPS coordinates in. So that's like a feature I'm going to try and build into this thing where when you run this on somebody else's machine, you get a little map thumbnail that shows you where the person is. So this is we're getting into creepy mode, right? Oh, zoom it in? Ah. Is this the zooming you're looking for? Yeah. Yeah, it knows we're at the casino. It can't tell where in the casino we are, but it knows we're at the casino. Yeah. So, I mean, it's good enough, right? It's good enough to be operational. This is actionable intelligence. You can do stuff with this. Okay. So I thought that was pretty neat. I'm like, oh man. So yeah, it's super good. Okay. So anyway, this is why I say why hacking team and NSA got it right. Despite the fact that they're really, evil and invading all the legal stuff that people are screaming out on the internet. Yes, that's true. However, as it turns out, if you get screenshots, GPS coordinates, and webcam pictures, you're going to get more rich intelligence and more info out of a shell on somebody's machine than any actual shell will give you. Like, if you add keylogging, it's just insane. So, to show you what it actually looked like, it's kind of like this, right? So, this is me capturing him receiving an email from one of the other producers that says, here's a video from the documentary that we're producing that was made, and here's like an example you can go watch. The password is password. Oh, this is why we drink. Yeah, but like, you know, he's looking right into the camera. Like, and as a note, when you're firing the webcam on a Mac, like, the light goes green. So, like, dude is seeing the light go green on his Mac and just staring at it going, this is probably bad. Yeah, fun times. Like, here's another one where he's writing an email to Kashmir saying, I'm so fucked, my laptop just talked to me. It said, you look bored, dude, and my webcam has been taking secret pictures. Like, the say command on the Mac, you guys are familiar with, like, you can go into a terminal and type say, la, 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 whatever, and your Mac will shout at you, right? I was doing that to this poor guy, and he was, like, sat at this coffee shop, like, and, okay, so here's a fun piece of being, you know, observational. What do you see in this pair of photos? That's right! Dude left his machine unlocked and unattended in a coffee shop. And I'm like, okay, knowing that, right, knowing that that's the case, knowing he does that sort of stuff, again, operationally viable intelligence, like stuff that you can use if you're running an op on the dude, or if you're hired to do a pen test, or if he says, fuck my life up. But like, these are things, and when he came back, and oh man, I wish I had video of this. Oh, it would have been golden. I did the same thing. I was like, wouldn't it be really weird if your laptop started shouting at you in the middle of a crowded coffee shop? And like, he had his earbuds in, the volume all the way up, and he said after the fact, he jumped out of his skin. He's like, what the? And this is my favorite. This is the best. An email to me starting with the words, oh fuck. That made it all worth it. Anyhow, so at the time, and I think this is discontinued because I tried to get better screenshots for this demo, but I couldn't. 1Password had a thing that they were distributing called 1Password Anywhere. And I've actually heard, I think as of last night, it might still exist, but you have to get it out of the App Store, and it no longer ships with 1Password directly, which I guess is good because for all of the benefits that this thing has, like if somebody gets their hands on it, you're just boned. Just dive into a wood chipper because your life is over. So 1Password Anywhere is kind of a good idea, but kind of like maybe they could have implemented it better, I guess. It's an HTML file and a JavaScript file that live in Dropbox if you sync 1Password with Dropbox, because your database goes to live in Dropbox, and because you can log into Dropbox from any website, from anywhere, you can run this password, or you can run this HTML file, and it'll ask you for your creds, and you can log into your Dropbox instance, well, not really instance, but you get read-only access to your Dropbox database. So if you phish him with OSA script, and you ask 1Password to ask for his password, and he gives you his 1Password password, then you just exfiltrate I keep saying anybody's 1Password database, and you have a read-only, a very pretty interface, for a read-only interface to a 1Password database. So dude had everything in there, like credit card numbers, he had a social security card number in there, a bunch of pins for a bunch of different things, and also, consequently, exactly what 1Password is supposed to be used for, pages and pages of all the URLs and websites and web apps that he had stored credentials for, one of which was Dropcam. So yeah, fun times. So you'll see people like installing security, like I have a bunch of security cameras at my house, and they keep shipping me those, oh, this one syncs to the cloud. I'm like, no, I am not sending my surveillance data to anybody that lives with me. This is why. See all those little lines? Those are all the, like, things that happened in his yard. I can log into Dropcam and look at this dude's yard and go review his surveillance footage because the password was in 1Password. So, like, when I saw this, I get Kashmir on the phone. I'm like, hey, do you want to go do an op on Kevin? And she's like, go on. I said, do you have, like, a big printer in the place? And she's like, well, we have a plotter. I'm like, perfect. Like, right, get like a whiteboard marker and just draw, this says hi on a big fucking piece of paper. And she's like, I know exactly what you want to do. I'm like, alright, well, here's his address, this is where the camera is, call me when you get to his house. So she calls me, and I watch her walk into the yard. And she's got this big sign that's like Vista's High, so we rolled it up and left it at his door. I mean, this didn't make it into the documentary at all. I'm like, man, they left out all the meat. But yeah, so at this point it was just playtime, right? So in hindsight, and also as a note, as I presented a lot of cons, and I vehemently believe that the quality of your presentation hinges entirely on the quality of animated GIFs that you shoehorn into your talk. So, in hindsight, there's a lot of stuff that was really cool that I discovered that you can I basically took a bunch of tools from other people and a little bit of stuff for myself and glued it all together into a thing. Really gross, cobbled together thing, which is why I call it duct tape C2. But in hindsight, scale matters, right? If you have 600 shells, shit's gone break. You have to figure out how to deal with 600 shells. Currently, no attack framework has the ability to say, stop giving me shells from this box after 4 or 5 shells. I don't need 600 shells from the same machine. That doesn't exist. I need to, and I probably will at some point if I have time to laptop, go lob that into GitHub for Metasploit today, hopefully. OPSEC matters. If this gallery that you've put together that you're eavesdropping on this guy with, let's say that in the writing of the script, one of the revisions of the script, I forgot to delete the local copy of the JPEGs before they got lobbed off to my curl catcher script. So dude is like, my hard drive is full. What the hell? And he goes and he opens this hard drive space checker directory X or something like that. I forget. Some application. And he's like, there's this directory full of stuff that's like gigs and gigs and gigs. And he goes and he looks at it and it's like 17,000 pictures of himself. And he's like, that's bad. Don't get caught like that. I stepped on that landmine, so you don't have to. Right? OPSEC, same thing goes for if that gallery lives somewhere in the internets. If that gallery lives somewhere on the internets and your target stumbles across it or somebody else stumbles across it, you're gonna have a bad time. Ask me how I know. Turn off directory indexing on your web server so that if there is a mistake that you make, you didn't drop an HTML file in there, or somebody goes looking, then they don't just land in a directory listing of like pages and pages and pages of, oh my god, you're owned. Obfuscate the toolkit, which is actually, this is advice from me to me in a talk on stage that you all got to see me embarrassing myself with. Currently, duct tape C2 is just straight up text, just shell scripts. And I'm not entirely certain how to go about obfuscating it, because I haven't spent a lot of time doing that sort of thing. Generally speaking, you get in, you get out. I mean, for these long-term sort of gigs where you're watching people, if you're doing a 5-day pen test, you can get in and get out and people probably won't notice. But if you're doing a 3-month pen test, or 3 month, like we do these, like my company, that's all we do is these massive, like we will own you like Sony got owned engagements. And 3 months is a long time for somebody to notice that something's hinky. So at that point, obfuscation matters and scale matters. So also, since Let's Encrypt is out, just wrap everything in SSL. Don't let a customer or a client tell you like you're transmitting credentials or surveillance information unencrypted out over the open internet, especially if your target ends up going home or going to a coffee shop or going to a friend's house or going to law enforcement, who knows, right? So again, as I said, it seems that NSA and hacking team are onto something, and really, 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 really rich data. So expansion plans, you can use DTC2 as a dropper for anything. The fish that I sent was basically an email that said, click this link, go and download this DMG file, and the DMG file was a platypus app it was literally just like the dropper shell script that ran all the installation that like creates the directory and creates all these plist files that are all the cron stuff, and Python interpreter. You can just bolt extra stuff onto that, right? So you can make it do crazy things. So I asked, right, and I was like, I'm gonna go talk about this tool. Is it puppy or is it poopy or what? And dude actually said like the only correct pronunciation is the funniest one, poopy. Okay, it's poopy shell. So yeah, first question I got at layer 1 was, how often do you play with poopy? And I'm like, well, probably not often enough. So I have a big thank you to send out to the people that helped me. Like, there are people with which I absolutely could not have done this. C. Nelson for showing me the correlation stuff. Fuzzy Not because he's just a wizard. Like, I don't have any other way to describe the guy. The guy's just a wizard. He's the guy that thought up the OSA script thing, and I just took his stuff and bolted it onto mine. And the Colonial for sanity checking my crap code. And also, obviously Kevin for being a sport and letting me literally splash around in his life like a kid in a puddle. So here's the URL to the repo. Please go steal this and tell me what a crap coder I am, and please help. It would be really, really cool to have a toolkit that's specifically designed for OSX, because really there isn't one. I mean, there is one now, kinda, which is Empire. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. And I suspect since Empire isn't geared to do surveillance like this thing is, they can play nicely together and you can use this thing to drop payloads for Empire. So hopefully this is like a not really a niche space, but hopefully I'm filling a space with this like webcam capture, screen capture thing that nobody else has filled yet. And with that, I talk really fast and I still have a bunch of time left, so please pelt me with questions or throw a knife at me or something. Any questions in the room? Any comments? Hit me out way in the back. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, how much legal back and forth did I have to deal with to make this thing happen? And yeah, basically, how much legal? Practically none. The guy producing the documentary asked me in writing to fuck his life up. And I have like years of history and years of me doing talks. Like if it went to court, I'd be like, here's a binder of all the stuff that I do for work, and like this one paragraph is what he asked me for, and this is what we do. Here's my S corp. What's the problem? So like, dude asks you in writing, like, drop a train on me? Okay. At that point, there's not much. Like, he can't decide after the fact, well, I don't like the train. It was the wrong color. Doesn't matter. Anybody else? Okay, short version. Is there a way to detect duct tape C2 and is there a way to mitigate it? Yeah, just install a little snitch. I mean, all the C2, all the comms was just HTTP, and it was just curl posting to a URL. So if suddenly a.out wants to speak to the internet and little snitch pops a dialog box saying a.out wants to talk to like dirtyhacks.org or whatever, then that's usually a pretty big sign. You know, for the future, it would be really cool to have DNS or ICMP backhaul. That would be really, really cool. But I don't know how to do that yet, so I needed to figure out how to incorporate that and how to deal with it, because that would be really neat too. But yeah, so the TLDR was after I did all this, we had a debrief at DEF CON on Friday last year, and that's actually that debrief is what went into the documentary video. And the advice I gave him on camera to like how to deal with this was literally just install Little Snitch and that should fix this. So, there were probably logs that were created because of my screwing with launch control. But I did not spend a lot of time going through logs and looking. Bash history will get full of a lot of stuff because it's just shell scripts. But mainly it's launch control. You can do like, there's a launch control like I think -S. I forget what the command line is. But with launch control, you can see, show me everything that launch control is running. And at the time, I had this thing named .nsa, so it would have been really, really obvious. Like I did not spend any time obfuscating it or making it like hidden because dude said I had a week and I was on a live engagement and I was doing a talk at DEF CON, so I was like 3 or 4 layers of like onion deep. And on top of that, I had this. So I had this in my ultra spare time, nights and evenings, for like 6 or 7 days. So I had to work very quickly. I didn't have a lot of time to plan or cavort or obfuscate. So yeah, this was just ultra noisy. This was me just like shooting flares in the air all day. Yeah. Sorry. Go for it. It's in actually, okay, so if you want to see his side of it, go on YouTube, look for Fusion Real Future. And it's episode 8, the hacking episode. I'll let him say it, because he says something about throwing his laptop in the ocean. But he says it better than me. Yeah, I enjoyed it. But yeah. Anybody else? Oh, here we go.
Is that the documentary?
Yeah, the documentary's name is Fusion Real Future, and it's on YouTube. 8. Yep. It's the only one with hacking in the title.
It may be worth noting that as far as we're talking about pen testing enterprise with mixed environments, I've not personally ever seen one that collects endpoint logs from OSX clients.
Okay. So the comment was, Okay, so the comment was, having done this for several years, I don't see endpoint data collection from OSX clients in the enterprise, which is probably true in a lot of instances. If you have a small handful of Macs, it's probably not worth buying a tool like Casper. I spent a year at Twitter, and it was just an entire fleet of Macs, and they used Casper and they tracked everything. So it was handy because like suddenly there's a Mac and it's like 15 blocks away, and this person is on vacation in Pakistan or something, and they're like, why is their laptop like? And they press the self-destruct button. So I have no idea how much Casper costs. I was never associated with that part of the business. That was more the IT and desktop side of the house. But there are tools. Casper is one of them that are used to basically do kind of like Carbon Black, kind of like Active Directory. You can even have OSX auth against Active Directory if you want. Like, there's a bunch of stuff you can do with Macs. But what I've noticed is, to echo your comments, is if you have an organization with several hundred Windows boxes and you have like 5 Macs, they're probably not going to want to burden IT with, here's all the stuff that you have to do for your Windows stack, and here's an exact duplicate that you have to do for the 5 Macs you have. They're going to be like, no, I don't care. So yeah. Anybody else? Go for it. Yeah. Yep. It wasn't Dropbox that gave me a shell. It was I added a user for myself and created an SSH tunnel with a reverse port forward and just started SSHing into the guy's Mac. Yeah. Once you have you're in when you have a non-interactive shell, but having an interactive shell means that you can do things like open an editor and run top and like launch screen and do a bunch of other stuff that needs a PTY. If you don't have a PTY, like you can't even run top. Top will complain at you. You don't have a PTY. But to that end, there was a guy, who here knows who Phineas Fisher is? No? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So, you guys remember Hacking Team? Anybody heard of Hacking Team? Remember Hacking Team? Okay. Remember how they got turned inside out like a gym sock last year? It's like the most polite way of putting it. TLDR, a hacktivist named Phineas Fisher, found an Italian company selling a surveillance toolkit that's way more polished than mine to oppressive government regimes around the world, to law enforcement places, and allowed them to do really, really creepy, evil things like spy on political dissidents and have people assassinated. He got in and he did a bunch of stuff, and he turned them inside out like a gym sock and posted everything on Pastebin. And it was big news for a little while. About a month ago, dude said, okay, it's been more than a year, and he wrote this huge write-up on Ghostbin and published it. Here's how I owned Hacking Team. He didn't say what appliance he owned, but he said he basically got into some embedded appliance by finding an ODE, and then exfiltrated everything into and out of that organization through some sort of appliance. The presumption is that he owned Barracuda, but nobody has any intel for sure except him, and he won't say. Then about a week later, he released a sort of how to own people video that got pulled from YouTube after like 6 hours. But in that, and this is, sorry, I tell long stories. He owns a website with SQLi, gets a non-interactive shell through SQLmap, and then turns it into an interactive shell by way of doing all of these commands. And I saw that and went, I need that. I want that. And I never went back to go take notes, so you reminded me that I need to do that. But that would be fucking awesome. I should probably put that in this somehow, or at least like the how-to of, here's how you go from a non-interactive shell to like voodoo chicken bones and blood and dice, and suddenly you have like an interactive shell with screen. The tiki grass skirt seems to help. I don't know why. But yeah. Anybody else? More questions? No? No knives? Way in the back. Oh, you missed the part about how I got a shell in the first place. I took Python interpreter, I wrapped it with a tool called Platypus, and I put it on a website that was a fake Squarespace. Then I sent him an email saying lol security, and he went and downloaded the thing and opened it and ran it. I fished him into downloading a DMG file from the internet, opening it and running the app inside, which immediately gave me a shell. So the first thing I did when I got a shell, it was a Python interpreter. It's a reverse bind shell. So it phones home to me outward through NAT, through whatever. If he can reach the internet, I just stick up like a DigitalOcean or Amazon EC2 instance and I put a listener on it, and that thing phones home to that, and I'm connected to that and it's got a little interface and I can interact with that shell through that tool. Anybody else? Aha, that's a very good point. Did he have a security settings turned up to a point to where like he would get notified this is not a legitimate application, this is, right? You only get that if you download, well no, that's true, I guess he didn't. Maybe he did. I'm not 100% sure. So that's what, yeah, so how to get past Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper, so OSX has extended attributes that you can apply to directories and files. And those extended attributes get set when you download stuff through a browser. Like the browser is adding attributes to the files you download, and they go into the downloads directory. So the system knows if the file is in the downloads directory and the file has these attributes, pop Gatekeeper. But if you clone stuff out of GitHub or download stuff with wget, that doesn't happen because those attributes don't get set. So in the past, I've gotten around that on engagements by just telling people, I'm IT, this is obviously, we're not going to pay Apple for a signed cert for this thing that we need to, this is a client, this SSL certificate installer, like we're not going to pay Apple several $100s so that we can get people to install a two-way SSL cert out of convenience. Just click the stupid OK button, and they do. But I don't know, like, how many times, like, who here in the room, I'm guilty of this, you download something from the internet, and then the gatekeeper says this isn't from the internet, and you click OK, right? Like, you have to do this to function. Not everything is signed. I found, it's never been a problem for me, basically. Okay, so I have 3 minutes, a little less than, one more? Did I notice him getting fished by anybody else? No, I suspect that his spidey sense was tingling quite hard at the time. I also have half a mind to believe that if he had openly attempted to, like, squelch whatever I was doing, there wouldn't have been much of a story for the documentary. So I have a suspicion that despite me getting, like, putting this guy on like a hat, he let some of it happen, yeah. Yeah. Alright, I got time for like one more.
You mentioned that this is obviously relevant to a lot of us because we work in things environments.
Yep. I don't think it would have performed any differently. I think what you could have done at that point was jumped from a Mac to Active Directory and then continued your pillaging and looting as though you would a normal red team engagement when you get to the Windows side of things. Because if you have a Mac that's joined to Active Directory and you can get that guy's credentials out of the Mac, which I've shown you how you could do, then you could literally jump ship to doing all the fun Mimikatz stuff that we know and love on the Windows side of the house. So I think it would have helped more than hurt. I don't think there's anything about joining a Mac to Active Directory that would have prevented any of this from happening. Yeah, exactly. You're creating a gateway to getting more access out of having a Mac now joined to Active Directory. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but I mean, it makes the Mac more like any other Windows desktop at that point. All right, I got a minute and a half. Holy crap! Thank you all for coming down for a 9 a.m. talk. Oh man, I appreciate all your attention. I'll be around. Pelt me with questions, stab me, whatever. Thanks.